please welcome the incredible Amy Jordan.
Hey, Renee, what an honor to be here and in front of this community of women that are all looking to be empowered and grow together. I'm just really pumped and inspired to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you are the first person who ever taught me Pilates.
It's a badge I wear with honor.
Yeah, it was really cute when we were in LA. Because are you in Dan's coaching program?
Yes.
Okay, so he knows you and Dan's assistant was like, I need to go to Pilates. I'm like, oh God, no, there's no way I would do Pilates. And so she dragged me along at like what, 7 o'clock in the morning. And
It was earlier than I would normally have been there, but I knew she was coming. I didn't know you were coming. I was so happy to meet you. It was like
I didn't know I was going either, but I got free socks out of it. So we showed up and Dan popped into with Sam just to say hi. And I got on, I call it the rig, but it's a reformer machine. When I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, what is this going to do to me?
It looks like
Are you strapping me up?
Yeah, when people first walk in and if they've only done CrossFit or if they've done another type of workout but not Pilates and they walk into the room, they jokingly turn back around like, oh no, this looks miserable. And it's actually the most epic thing ever. And our machine has even more bells and whistles because I invented the one we use at WundaBar. And so even to people familiar with Pilates, it can look like a whole next level, which it is. And it's an interesting reaction. That first reaction to Pilates equipment is usually like, oh no, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah. So is your reformer machine like a Pilates machine on crack?
It is. It's like, I like to call it like a Swiss Army knife because it's 4 machines in one. So we have them all used in every class. So you get awesome results and you don't get bored. I used to get so bored working out. This wasn't my first career. I'm sure we're going to touch on that in a little bit, but it wasn't my first career. And so I was always interested in being healthy and moving my body, but I would get so bored and nothing ever stuck. And Pilates is the first approach that really like hit me at the center, so much so that my hobby became my passion and my business. But that's one of the reasons why I created this Wundaformer, because it creates so much variety and so much different challenge and so many different ways to approach the movement that it keeps you really engaged and invested. And I have clients that I've worked with on this equipment since it was first brought into the studio. So we're looking at like 13 plus years, and they're still there all the time getting epic results and feeling.
Oh my God. You have people that are still coming to you after 13 years.
Mm-hmm. And even before that, we were working together just on regular Pilates equipment before I had invented this machine. So there's a large group of people in my hometown that's been like 15 years. That's how effective and really life enhancing and it just benefits you. You feel awesome. I know you felt awesome after class. You got to come back down.
I did. I mean, I was looking around this room. I walked into the room, I'm not going to lie. And I was like, hey, there's some women there that I know you could probably bounce quarters off their butt. And then there was other women. I'm like, oh, maybe this is their first class too. They could crush those tiny little movements forever. And I'm like, dude, I can deadlift your body weight. I could probably bench press your body weight, but I can't even do a tiny little squat over and over again. What a fascinating exercise. And I want to do a quick sidebar before I ask you all these questions, but Dan and I just got our results back from an executive physical that we did. So we had like a full MRI, mole mapping, genetic testing, blood testing, all this stuff, because we wanted to get a baseline.
Sure.
And yesterday was my results reading. And I felt like confident going into it. When I woke up yesterday morning, I thought, oh God, there's a possibility that the doctor is going to tell me that they see something. And so I'm sitting there on the call and he's got a big smile on his face. I'm like, what? He goes, Renee, you have the best MRI I have ever seen.
Hallelujah.
Right? Yeah. So that is huge. He goes, but there's a couple of things. And one is we saw this little tiny bulge on your disc in your lower back. And there's no way of pinpointing what caused it. It could have been childbirth, could have been CrossFit. He goes, but you can't reverse it, but you can slow it or stop it from getting worse. And here's what he said. He goes, if the only thing you ever did to work out was your core, this would stop it from getting worse. And I immediately thought of you. I immediately thought of Pilates because it is so much focus on the core, where I think of like running and CrossFit and all these other things that I used to do. The core was always the last thing we worked out. And it should
It's
be
usually like
first.
this throwaway, like, and now we're going to do 4 minutes of abs.
Yeah.
Or 4 minutes of core work after we've done all of this other extraneous, circumstances and exercises. And the way that we look at it is that every single move, even if you're doing a bicep curl, is coming from your core. We cue things from the center out. I like to call it inside out. We cue from the bones and the bone rhythms and how the bones are moving through their joints out. And then you can get all the way out to the hand and the arm. But if I'm asking you to do anything with your arm, you've been in my studio, I'm then going to ask you to sink into your shoulder and do into your core on the opposite side. So it's critically important, and it can and will improve how people feel in their own skin. And that's my whole jam. That's what I'm here for.
I don't doubt it. Okay, so tell us, how did you get into Pilates?
It was a tricky time in my life. I was a studio executive at the time in the entertainment industry. My undergrad is in art and design. So I was a creative director. My last role in a studio was at Marvel. I was a senior vice president of marketing. Super glam, super fun, red carpets, movie sets worldwide, the hottest studio in town. And every single day it was crushing my soul. And I just didn't feel like I was giving back in the way that I really wanted to live my life. I was doing a great job, a fun job. I worked with incredible people, but not as a storyteller or as a filmmaker, as a marketer. So I was selling the product, selling the Spider-Man t-shirts, selling the X-Men, DVDs. It just didn't feel like I was contributing to the world. At that time, I was also going through a really difficult divorce and breakup. And so I wasn't on real steady ground. And when I found Pilates, just as an exercise method, it was not intended or ever even thought of as a career. I would get inside of that room and all of that would fall away. All of that noise, all of that pain would fall away because it requires such sincere focus from the inside out. So all the outside noise was outside. And I was able to feel really strong and empowered, like I can get through these challenges that I'm going through. I'm reset and I'm ready to hit the ground running and get back to, the challenges I was going through at that time.
So it's so interesting that you find that magic and flow in something that you didn't know was possible. I have that when I go into CrossFit. And so while I couldn't imagine myself lifting the weights that I do. So I started CrossFit, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe now. No, 9 years ago. No. Wow. It was between my first and second child. So anyway, I could not have asked myself one day to go in and lift heavier weights or even like a dumbbell. I would go to the gym and I would push myself just enough until it kind of hurt. Then I give up. I'm like, oh, that's good. That's going to form a muscle. I never got bigger. And then I did CrossFit. And that's where I found my flow, which I think is, if you look at it from like a spiritual, like soul perspective, it's kind of like that's where you belong. Now, whether this is going to do for a career, if this is how you're going to earn a living, it doesn't matter. When you're in a place where you feel safe and comfortable and you belong, there's something about that. And most people just don't even double click on that because they'll ask themselves, is this for me? Or what is expected of me? Or no, my parents told me that I should be a lawyer. So let's go to law school or a doctor. So let's go to medical school.
Let's do it because it's what the expectation is.
That's it. And so we lose hope. We think, oh, this is just the way it is. So it's the way it's always got to be. And we never feel fulfilled. And so you went from having this incredible job that I'm sure people that are in that role right now are living their dreams because that was for them. And by design, it wasn't for you. And so you slipped into a Pilates class. And then 13 years later,
Yep. It's
You're
actually, we're at like 15 plus years later now. Excuse me.
15
And
years later, and you are an inventor. You
I,
have patents.
I'm so excited. I was just told today that my second invention, I have one here because it's always close by. This is the WundaBar resistance ring. It takes the old Pilates ring that falls apart in 2 seconds and doesn't serve the way that I wanted it to find that core connection, and it replaces it. So I just found out today that it is approved as a patent. So it's my second patent that I have earned. The first one is
Wow.
for the window former machine. Second one is for this. And touching on what you were just saying about how you went into CrossFit and just kept going forward, from a spiritual perspective, I see that as the universe. I like to say God, you might say universe, can guide you if you're in motion, but they're not going to push you if you sat down. So it can help you on your path and get you on track. But if you sit down, it's not going to happen. They're not going to shove you along the path. So if you keep moving, keep trying, keep working on yourself, keep working on your movement, and okay, you tried Pilates, it's not for you. Okay, CrossFit was a little too much. Maybe yoga's your jam, maybe swimming's your jam. But as long as you keep going, you're going to get where you need to be, and God or the universe can guide you along that path. But you've got
Yeah,
to
movement,
participate by moving.
it's magic. Movement is magic. Moving your body, moving your interests.
Yeah.
Like I have right next to my desk my electric drum set. And admittedly, I have not been on it for a little bit because we got busy. But I'm coming back to it because when I sit there and I learn like a new beat, it is very meditative for me because I'm not thinking of anything else. And time
Mm-hmm.
can go by quick. The 20 minutes can feel like 2 seconds, or an hour can feel like 2 seconds. And the reason why I got into drumming, this started a few years ago, was because I was kind of getting bored with what I was doing and I wanted to try something new. And by trying something new meant going out and like signing up for drum classes, playing ultimate frisbee, just trying different things that were so out of alignment with what I thought what I wanted to do, but also broke a pattern of familiarity.
Mm.
And breaking that pattern really tests you. And so, like, even you can go and try these things without it needing to be something that makes you money. That's the thing where people lose it, is they think they
Absolutely.
have to earn a living from it. I remember when I started drum class, my husband was like, "What's the purpose of this? Like, what are you going to do with this?" Sorry, just 1 second, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna pause.
Can you guys play with the dog so he's not making noise?
Our dog walker just got back. I will mark this so that Joel knows to
No,
cut that
please
out.
be quiet.
Shut up. I know our dog walker just got back. Good. So when Dan asked me what I wanted to do with drumming, I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll perform on a show someday. Like I had to have some sort of plan on what it was going to look like in the long run. And really sometimes it's just to do for joy. For the sake of joy, we need to actually turn to joy more often.
And the sake of creating and creating some art in this world.
Yeah.
That
And
it
that's
doesn't
what you
have
did.
to be for anything other than filling your spirit and filling your creative need to express yourself, whether it's drumming or movement or painting. I'm an artist, and so I draw. I love to draw with Conti crayon, and that's my creative outlet in addition to movement and creating in my work. But those live within my house, and I'm not putting art out there into the world, but they are in my home, and it is a way for me to work not only through emotion, but just to let that creative outlet happen. And there's no end
Ooh,
game. It's just being the
it
artist
is.
that I am, and letting that side of myself express what I need to.
Well, and I'd say you're an artist too in inventing things. So you have the reformer. Um, how did you and why did you create a new machine in the world of Pilates?
If If I would go back and kind of revisit the headspace that I was in, I had one studio, maybe two. I think I had two studios with regular reformer machines that a lot of people had. And I loved the work I was doing. I really enjoyed it. But I did a deep dive into my own training. So I invested in growing myself, which I think is really important in business, is that we continue to grow and learn more instead of just like, oh, I was making a lot of money, but I knew I wanted to know more. I wanted to know how to help people more. And ignorance is bliss. I sketched this machine because I wanted to have a Wunda chair and a reformer and a jump board, but all of those are usually big chunks of equipment sitting around a studio. Well, I already had the leases. I wasn't going anywhere, and my spaces weren't big enough to add 10 Wunda chairs and 10 jump boards. It just wasn't going to happen. And I wanted a ballet bar. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make my own machine, and it's going to be easy breezy. I'll bolt on the chair and it's going to be fun. We're on version like 15.0 now, but I had to start somewhere. The first prototype I made didn't even work. Literally didn't work. So the Wunda chair, the backside of the machine where we were kind of doing like almost handstands at the end, the pedal needs to lift you up. And we had made it out of solid steel. So no matter how many springs you would hook up, it would just go like,
fall down.
Floor. So looking at that, the state of mind I was in was that I just believed that it was going to work. And I was just going to keep moving through the challenges instead of being like, oh my God, this first prototype didn't work. I guess I'll just use what everyone else has. I'm making money. The clients are happy. No one knows any better. It's fine. But I really just trusted the vision that I had and trusted this idea that I had, that in those same square foot of studios, I could do so much more if I was able to develop this machine. And it took time. It took a year. It was in my living room. My son learned to walk around it instead of a coffee table because we didn't have an extra room to put it in. So we just swapped out the coffee table and here was a Pilates machine. My dad would come over. He's a woodworker, and he would literally like bring in different pieces, different samples of sizes. We would explore different things together. And a year later, we had a studio with 10 machines in it and people practicing WundaBar Pilates for the first time. And we all learned as educators how to teach WundaBar because the approach didn't exist. We had to create the training manual, the biomechanics, all of the things, the anatomy study that goes into how we help others heal in their own skin.
Yeah. So have any other studios adopted this machine, or is it exclusive to yours?
It's exclusive to WundaBar. Right now, I'm exploring allowing licensed studios. We did have a franchise for a minute. It wasn't a business model that served me very well as far as where I felt I was spending my time. So we still have 2 franchise studios. They're amazing, wonderful humans that we work with in Southern California. But then the rest of the studios have been corporate expansion, and then getting into the product space with the WundaCore. That's how I continued to innovate and expand. And that was out of a really difficult season during COVID when I also battled cancer. And I just kept moving one breath at a time. I don't even believe in one day at a time. It was literally one breath at a time.
So tell us about that journey.
Oh, it was a tough one. So cutting back to 2020, so overnight, every single penny of revenue stopped overnight because I only had revenues from the brick and mortar studios, from the actual physical studio spaces. And we started doing Zoom from my living room, but the volume of money coming in from, 10 studios versus from Zoom classes is quite different. Both of my kids were homeschooled. So they were in kindergarten and 3rd grade. Their father and I were divorced, and we lived next door to each other in the Hollywood Hills in California. So the kids have like a rope. They climb up a rock wall down, back and forth. So this is the experience that we're all kind of getting through. We're just getting through it. And then in June of 2020, if it's not TMI, you can cut this part if you want to, but I had really unexplained bleeding. And I had had clear pap smear 5 months earlier, 6 months earlier. I was not worried at all, but I went to see my gynecologist and he said, I don't know what I'm looking at, but I'm not happy about it. I'm going to biopsy it. And a week later, he called on June 9th, 2020, and told me that you have cancer.
Oh, God.
Long story short, I was diagnosed with small cell neuroendocrine carcinoma, which is a very aggressive and very dangerous cancer. The survival rate is very, very low. But I didn't even look it up because I knew I needed to keep moving forward. So I didn't Google it once. I didn't do any WebMD deep dive.
Oh, dear Lord, I would be lost in that.
Never. I listen, if,
Good
you
for
know,
you.
heaven forbid, if you or anyone listening gets in that position, I recommend you stay off of all of that because it doesn't apply to you. It's not you. It's a stat. It's other people. What you're showing up with your prayer, with your intention, with your choices, that is what matters. The stats don't matter. So I didn't even know that single digit stat until after I was already declared cancer free. So within 6 days, I was at a 9-hour chemo infusion. I ended up doing 90 hours of chemo. And mind you, business is still closed. Children still homeschool. It was wild because we operate in California and New York. Nothing opened for over a year. So it was an incredibly intense journey, and it was done in a very solitary fashion because I live in Los Angeles and the hospitals were under really, really, really restricted visitors. You know, no one could go with me. I think for the first day of chemo, I had someone there. Even when I woke up from my hysterectomy, they let someone see me for like 5 minutes and then out, and then I was alone. And then I had complications and all of the things. It just kind of went on and on and on.
So inhumane. So inhumane.
It was unreasonable. And I had to really wrestle with the fact, I'm going to get emotional because I really struggled with the fact that like I'm such a fraud. I teach Pilates. I'm supposed to be about health. I live a super healthy lifestyle. And now I'm absolutely sidelined, literally one breath away from not getting through this. And I had to make the really hard decision to make it not a super public journey, not every little nitty gritty detail, but I made it a very public journey where on the days I could, I was teaching class with no hair on my head. There are videos on the internet of me teaching Pilates with a completely bald head because I knew that if I could move, I would feel better. And there were many days where I couldn't. There was no moving. It was not going to happen. I was so sick. But on the days that I could, I tried to help others by leading class and moving, and also serve myself and my healing by getting out of my own head and getting into that movement. And I really know and believe and want to encourage everyone to keep moving, even in crisis, even in a health crisis, because it is what heals. Movement heals spirit, mind, and body.
100%. Interesting how we tell ourselves these stories about how, like, you are the healthy Pilates studio owner, instructor, inventor, and who are you to get cancer? So now all of a sudden you're blaming yourself because you shouldn't be the one to be getting sick. So what message now are you sharing with the world? But universe, God, whatever you believe in, says this is your journey and your story, because really what you needed to do was to get through it and to show people that Pilates was the thing that kept you sane and healthy throughout this journey.
Absolutely.
Because other than that, otherwise, we were talking about this the other day, how I go, you're the epitome of what I think a cliched Pilates instructor looks like. Pretty, youthful, great body, like seemingly perfect life. And now when we dig through the surface, we understand you went through all of this.
And you know, now really difficult time period to go through. And the difficulty of divorce is what originally propelled me into Pilates in the first place, to find my life's passion.
So divorce, pandemic,
cancer,
Pilates studios shut down, cancer, homeschool, like you kind of got it all over with at once.
It was a a season, let me tell you that. I'm glad that it's behind me. But we all have challenges. And sometimes people say, even when I was sick, especially, oh, Amy, I don't want to complain to you because I do work with people's bodies and they, my knee hurts, my shoulder hurts, whatever, surgeries. And I'm like, it's not a contest. Just because I had a gnarly list of things going on, every single challenge that we're dealing with is real and it's true. And you need support from your community around you. That was another very large lesson, is that I had to rely really sincerely on the tribe of people around me that carried me through that journey personally and professionally, who took over my businesses for me in that really bizarre time to do so, and who helped me with my children and helped get me to and from the hospital. I mean, I had to hands off and let them take care of it. I wouldn't know who was taking me to the hospital. I had like 25 days of radiation, and someone would just knock. They'd be on my doorstep. I'd get in their car and they'd take me there. And I would never know who was coming when, and they never missed once.
That is beautiful. I got goosebumps. As actually just interviewed Jessica Zweig for podcasts coming out.
She was in class with me in Nashville.
Okay. Yeah. And we were talking about, oh my gosh, about all this stuff. But the biggest thing is how we need to bring back the village. We talked about like the burning times and how witches were actually women doing good deeds for others. But religion, the patriarchy just they were threatened by the power of women working in communion to help each other out. And now the world that we live in is really about how a woman should be able to do it all. Like go through the pandemic, studios shut down, surviving cancer, going through divorce. Oh, but you should be able to drive yourself to your chemo. Like that is the message that the patriarchy is sending. And now
my doctor told me, even as a female doctor, the radiologist, she was like, yeah, you should probably be able to drive yourself. I was like, okay. I didn't know until I started. And then it was an absolute no, but.
Well, yeah, it's depleting. I wouldn't know, but I know that it's depleting. And so now we're coming of age in the sense that the world is cracked open. The feminine energy is coming out and saying, you are not supposed to be meant to do this by yourself. Raising kids is not supposed to be a solo journey.
No,
it's not. Because if it was, it would be a heck of a lot easier. Like we're not supposed to be so exhausted and sick just from raising kids and going to work. That's not the way that humans are designed.
No.
And we don't need to ask for permission for this help. It is just natural as tribal beings that we are supposed to be there for each other with no excuses.
They had a whole name. They called themselves Amy's Angels. And it was a separate text thread that I was not on. I was not on the text thread. And they were my prayer warriors. They were, bringing things by. They were spending time with my children. They were taking me to and from. And it just speaks to the caliber of humans in this tribe. And, I'm so blessed and grateful to have that, because it is not doable on my own. And people say like, oh, how do you do it all? You run the studios, you have your kids, you do this, you're doing WundaBar. And my answer is always the same. I'm not doing it all. I might be kind of directing it all or, seeing through the completion of it all, but I'm absolutely not doing it all. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of incredible humans around me making it happen. And in my very personal circle, close-knit circle of people, it's a lot of women, other moms, just lifelong friends that are showing up for each other, me for them, and them for me. And it's a powerful, powerful relationship and tribe to have.
It's like you are the conductor to an orchestra, but you cannot have the orchestra without all of the different humans playing those instruments.
I love that. Yes, so true. And they all bring their own special tone and vibration and tools to the table. And especially in the work that I do, we are each doing our teaching Pilates in our own kind of version, as long as it's in the WundaBar frame.
And that's what I think is so beautiful about that, is accepting people for who they are, where they're at. Like I just envisioned myself showing up to your front door to bring you to a treatment. And you bet that we'd have like maybe some light red licorice. We'd be listening to some Fleetwood Mac and we'd be joking about something. But
Yeah.
then maybe your other friend Jane would show up with like crystals and more like healing type music. And if we can just own who we are in those instances, people will be naturally drawn to you.
Absolutely. And I know that it's talked a lot about right now in, just social media or life in general about how showing up authentically is what's going to be the most meaningful and the most powerful. And that's really the journey that I've taken into Pilates, because I used to feel I needed to look a certain way in order to teach Pilates, or I needed to be a certain way and use a certain anatomical terms and kind of be like these other people or ideas that I had in my mind. And I've gotten so much further when I really embody into my own self and my own skin and my own way of helping others. And that's when people show up and they feel like, oh, this might be my first time, or I might feel like I'm, kind of gotten off track in my fitness journey. And we've created a safe space for them at WundaBar. And that's a huge part of where my heart is and how I want to show up for people, because they come in and instead of feeling judged, because Pilates can be a pretty elitist environment in
Yeah.
older studios. I don't mean older people, but like in the past, it's been very elitist and, oh, it's so expensive. And no, it has to be one-on-one. And we've created this safe space and this environment where people come in, and I've had countless people say, I was so intimidated. And then when I came in, you continued to just like help me on the side or make a little adjustment. And I felt like I belonged. And that just, that makes my heart grow like 10 sizes, because that is what I want to do. I don't care what you look like. I care what you feel like when you leave. I care what you feel like in your skin, in your spirit when you leave versus when you came in.
Oh yeah. It's a burner. It's a burner.
Yeah, I mean, you are going to burn for sure. But
Yeah.
everyone has a space. And that's one of the things that I review with my team on their first day of training. And I say to them really specifically, everyone is welcome in this studio. I don't care about size. I don't care about gender. I don't care about sexual orientation. I don't care about politics. I don't care about anything. And if it gets back to me that you've made someone feel uncomfortable in this space, then you're going to get a phone call from me. And nobody wants a phone call from me. Like I don't call people.
You're getting booted out.
You don't want that. And I said, and I say, and no harm, no foul. Like if you don't align with that open arm attitude, then this is not a great fit. And one time in all the years we've been running trainings, I had someone approach me at break and say, this isn't a good fit for me. We refunded her money and went on our way.
Oh, wow. There you go.
It's too important to the heart of what we're doing, of serving and helping others heal.
That's it. And when I look at any sort of fitness activity, it's beyond the objective is beyond just being fit. Like that's it. And when we can see past that, knowing that it doesn't matter how hard we try to have like 6-pack abs and a nice butt, there are some people that, while it is a possibility for everybody, we have our own journey we're going through. Could be emotional, physical, spiritual, that won't allow us to get to that point. And it's tough to achieve that. So to know that when you're showing up to a Pilates studio or a CrossFit class, you're going there for more than just the workout. When you really understand that, it changes everything. Like when I walked into your Pilates studio, energetically, it felt amazing. I was like a little bit timid by those machines. I'm like, oh God, I feel like I'm going to fall off this thing. And you made it safe. When I walked into the CrossFit gym here, mind you, the first time I did CrossFit was so intimidating. You see these women that are like deadlifting 300 pounds and doing like clean and jerks at like 125 pounds. You're just like, how are you doing this? However, you find those people that are at your level and they all want the same thing. It's community, relevancy, resonance. You want to be able to relate to those people. And then you can talk about whatever you want. Like that's really kind of why I go to CrossFit at the end of the day, is those little side conversations I have with my buddies.
It's a community, and it's this
Yeah,
sense to the earlier point about tribe and community, and building that connection with other humans is really critical, and it's such an important part of moving together and just living life together and creating that experience in a safe space. I think it's so important.
it is. Okay, so then what is on the books in the future for what it is you're creating? Any more inventions down the line?
For sure. I literally have a prototype that is half cardboard, half wood upstairs.
That's awesome.
And that is going to be a home model of the WundaFormer machine. That's going to be a lot more like scale to fit in a home. It's going to be beautiful. I'm so excited. So I'm in development on that. I have additional product line items for WundaCore to add on to the tool that we already have to make it more of a system with loops and resistance. A weighted version of this is in development, different colors.
Oh, wow.
We've got all sorts of things to round out that product line. I have my team in New York looking at spaces on the Upper West Side. There's just a lot of the orchestra is churning and tuning their instruments and continuing to grow. And I just got back onto the digital world of working out because I had stepped back really sincerely into the studios. And lately, as we were kind of chatting about before, it's been on my heart to really impact and help and serve more people than I can inside of 4 studio walls. And so I just started a membership program and like coaching program where I am working out with people once a week. But again, it's more than a workout. We're doing a Q&A afterwards. So today we did a 20-minute kind of discussion about feet and how the feet are relative to your pelvic floor and your spine and your neck, and how to connect all of that also so that you have healthier knees. So it's this really beautiful kind of discussion, and the people on the call are bringing their concerns to me, and I'm just giving real-time feedback, even though they're nowhere near me. You know, I had someone from the Philippines on the call. I had someone back east on the call, people in California. And so it's a way for me to help them, even though I can't physically be in a room with all of them at the same time. I wanted to show up in that way. And so I've kind of taken a dive back into the digital world. And that will also be for when the home model is released, to do a connected fitness so that people have the same equipment that I have and we can move on that machine together.
Like Peloton for Pilates.
That's exactly right. You got it, girl. It's like you're in PR or something.
I know. I think I know how to message stuff. I can't even speak for myself right now. I love the journey. And I love how you stuck through it too, because like I talk about these moments of throwing in the towel where it's like you're faced with the opportunity and all of the reasons and excuses to say I'm done. And it's almost like this test. It's like you're going to graduate not only to the next chapter, but to the next volume of the book series. Are you ready for this volume? And I'm going to test you now by like throwing stuff at you. If you get through it, then you're good to go. You graduate to the next volume. So we see this in our life. We see some people, they just tap out. They're like, don't have it in them, and that's fine. There's something else in store for them. But you're like, nope, cancer, divorce, pandemic, this ain't going to stop me.
And this is made like on the backside of cancer. Like I was still very, very sick when this was concepted and sculpted in a little tiny clay that I scaled to one of my daughter's Barbie dolls. That was after all of that. And there's a book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic. And one of the key takeaways from the book for me is that, you know, you're going to get inspiration in your life. There's going to be a muse like tapping your shoulder, which, you know, might be an invention, might be a business idea, might be a book, might be a song. And the muse is going to tap you. And the idea is it's only going to tap you so long. And if you don't start taking action and moving, it's going to move on to the next shoulder and tap that shoulder. And I like that concept because it kind of lights a fire under me to, when I get a creative idea, to start sketching, start drawing, start literally cutting cardboard boxes upstairs to mimic what I want the machine to do.
Well, and that's the thing about ideas too, is like they're a dime a dozen. And an idea that we might have now has already been thought of probably millions of times over. It's just, it takes a certain person at a certain discipline and point in their life that they're capable to bring it through to fruition.
Well,
And you
and
happen to be that person for these things in that moment because God was like, boom. And you're like, yep, other people
got
already
it.
thought about it. They just didn't execute on it.
And I'm telling you, the idea of continuing to push yourself to grow is so important. I've had the home model machine on paper, drawn on paper for 2 years. And it took reading Buy Back Your Time and then working with Dan to organize my time better so that I could start working on the prototype.
Mhm.
And then now also that I've been getting guidance from you on PR and
Yeah.
doing outreach so that I can continue to help and serve more people, but it's by challenging myself. I've been in business for a long time. I certainly don't know it all. And it is so helpful to invest in improving how I show up to lead, how I show up to create, how I show up to serve, instead of saying, oh, well, I've got 11 studios, a couple patents, I'm good, I don't need to learn anymore. Continuing to push myself has made a really powerful and solid impact in my life and this next chapter looks like.
Man, we need more inventors. You've inspired me.
Do you know
And
that
by the way, oh, go ahead.
in the invention world, women are responsible for single digit, it's somewhere between 5 and 7% of patents in the States. That's not
Okay.
good enough.
Well, I got to start inventing crap
You
then. I've
start
got
drawing, girl.
I got ideas like you would not believe. Ideas. And it all comes down to like home organization. I'm obsessed with organizing things. This is what I'm realizing. And like this whole like letting my mind just go where it wants to go.
Mm,
And I'm obsessed with organizing. And this could be physical organizing as well as like online digital organizing. I just love doing
mm.
that stuff. Um,
Cool. Lean into it. If
I
it
know,
lights
right?
you up, that's where we're gonna be thriving without feeling like it's a
Organized
grind.
life. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also believe like physical and mental clutter causes you to stop, pull back, and stay stuck. And we
100%.
just do like every spring we do a purge in the house. I got rid of so much stuff. And every spot like the beginning of summer and the beginning of the year, I do 2 newsletter purges where I unsubscribe to every single thing.
Oh,
Everything.
I love
Unsubscribe.
that. I'm gonna do
Yep.
that. Because you end up being on so many and it's like
Yep.
then you can't see any of it. You can't read any of it.
That's it. And there's only one newsletter that I stay subscribed to. And that's James Clear's because he does such a great job.
Mm,
Um, okay. This has been incredible. I have one last question for you.
yes.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
I you didn't ask me this, so I'm having to go right off the top of my head or my heart.
Yeah.
I think to be a wild woman is to trust yourself and trust who you are as your unique, wild, and unusual self and leaning into that. So, trusting in that is who you're meant to be and how you're meant to be in this world.
Damn straight. Amy, if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
Excellent. So, we are at WundaBar.com. And if you are on the social media platforms, we're at WundaBar Pilates or at Amy Jordan Official. And if you want to know more about the WundaCore, that is WundaCore.com, at WundaCore, and they are also sold on Amazon.
Ooh, I love it. We have Amazon here.
All the way in Canada.
All the way in it's Amazon.ca, though. It is different. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Renee.